What you're about to hear is a story that will fundamentally change the way you think about teenage relationships, warning signs, and the devastating consequences when manipulation turns deadly. This is the tragic case of Jayden Parkinson, a 17-year-old girl whose bright future was stolen by someone she trusted, someone she loved. This is a story about love that turned toxic, about manipulation that was carefully masked as affection, and about a crime so profoundly disturbing that even experienced police officers, people who had seen the worst of humanity, struggled to process what they discovered when they opened her grave. If you're a fan of true crime and criminal investigations, you won't want to miss our new stories. Hit subscribe and get updated of all new coming stories. Now, let's dive into today's case on Crime Stories with Annie. Jayden Parkinson was everything you would want in a daughter, a sister, a friend. Those who knew her describe a young girl who radiated pure joy and possessed an infectious love for life that touched everyone around her. She had a slightly mischievous streak, the kind that made her endearing rather than troublesome. It harmoniously blended with her natural charm, creating a personality that drew people to her like a magnet. From her earliest years, Jayden shared a profound and special bond with her mother. It was a relationship built on genuine love, complete trust, and total openness. The kind of mother-daughter connection that many families aspire to but few truly achieve. Jayden's friendliness and natural warmth helped her navigate the sometimes complicated social landscape of school with remarkable ease. She collected friends the way other children collect toys, and each friendship was genuine, meaningful, and treasured. Teachers and classmates alike noted her exceptional sensitivity, her consistently cheerful disposition, and her genuinely kind heart. She wasn't just nice because it was expected of her or because she had to be. Academically, studies came naturally to her. She had dreams too. Specific, achievable dreams that excited her. Jayden wanted to become a hairdresser. It wasn't just a passing fancy or something she said when adults asked about her future. She was genuinely inspired by the idea of making people feel beautiful, of creating art with her hands, of bringing joy to others through her craft. Music. But at the tender age of 7, everything in Jayden's world changed forever. Her parents made the difficult and painful decision to divorce. In itself, this isn't uncommon in modern society. Many children successfully navigate their parents' separation and emerge resilient and healthy on the other side. But what happened next in the Parkinson family shocked absolutely everyone who knew them. In a custody hearing that left friends and relatives completely bewildered, the court made an unexpected decision. Custody of Jayden and her siblings was awarded not to their mother, but to their father. It remained an absolute mystery to those close to the family how this decision came about. There were no obvious conflicts between the parents, no dramatic incidents, no clear signs that suggested the mother was anything but loving, capable, and devoted. The father moved with all the children to Oxford in the United Kingdom, starting a new chapter far from the only home the children had known. For the Parkinson children, who had been accustomed to an atmosphere filled with love from both parents, this move and separation was absolutely devastating. They missed the fun holidays their parents used to plan, the pleasant surprises, the little moments of pure joy that their mom and dad would arrange just to delight them and see them smile. The decision hit Jayden especially hard. That special bond with her mother, the one that had defined her entire childhood, was suddenly strained by geographic distance and painfully limited contact. For a 7-year-old girl who thrived on emotional connection and closeness, this separation cut deep into her heart. As Jayden entered her teenage years, new and challenging trials emerged. Her irrepressible energy and newly awakened rebellious spirit complicated her father's sincere attempts to manage her upbringing effectively. Their relationship became increasingly strained and tense, and it wasn't because he didn't care about her. In fact, quite the opposite was true. He tried desperately to be a good parent. He made sincere and continuous attempts to surround the children with care, stability, and to provide them with absolutely everything they needed materially and emotionally. The real problem was one of perception and approach. The father was naturally stricter and more demanding in his parenting style compared to their mother. His approach, born entirely from concern, responsibility, and a desire to keep his children safe, felt to teenage Jayden like restriction of her freedom and excessive control over her life. The situation was further aggravated and made worse by the painful lack of regular communication with her mother, whom Jayden missed with an ache that never fully healed or went away. Unable to bridge the gap between what her father offered and what she needed emotionally, Jayden made a decision. She started going to her mother's home. She would spend precious time in the comfort and security of that familiar space, reconnecting with the parent she felt truly understood her without judgment or harsh rules. Importantly, Jayden didn't completely cut off communication with her father during these episodes of running away. She would answer his concerned calls. She would talk to him and reassure him she was safe. But at the first opportunity that presented itself, she would try to return to her mother's side. It was during one of these visits to her mother, when Jayden was just 14 years old, that her life took a fateful and ultimately tragic turn that would lead to her death. Jayden met a guy named Jake Blakeley, and through him she was introduced to Jake's older brother, Ben. Ben Blakeley was 20 years old at the time. Let that fact sink in for a moment. Ben started pursuing Jayden. Despite the significant and deeply inappropriate age difference, what Jayden perceived as mutual attraction developed between herself and Ben. Or at least that's what Jayden believed was happening. They decided to pursue a relationship, a decision that caused immediate concern and alarm among those who knew them. But Jayden herself was utterly captivated by the idea of dating an older guy. It made her feel mature, sophisticated, special, chosen. Due to her young age and extremely limited life experience, she remained naive about relationships and couldn't always cope with the complex and intense emotions and feelings that arose in this dynamic. She chose to ignore the warnings and red flags that came from friends and family members who could clearly see danger ahead. From the moment Ben officially became Jayden's boyfriend, he began to actively and deliberately integrate himself into her environment and social circle. He struck up acquaintances and friendships with his teenage girlfriend's classmates. Think about that for a moment. A grown man, legally an adult, deliberately socializing with school children. Despite the obvious and glaring difference in life experience and worldview, he somehow managed to find common ground with these teenagers. He even cleverly positioned himself as a leader figure among them, someone to look up to and respect. In parallel with this social manipulation, Ben surrounded Jayden with what seemed like excessive attention and care. To an inexperienced young girl who had never been in a relationship before, it felt like the fairy tale romance she'd always dreamed about. She fell head over heels in love with him. He completely and utterly captured her thoughts, her feelings, her imagination. He built magnificent castles in the air with nothing but his words, and naive young Jayden believed absolutely every single one of those promises. But the period of romance and carefree bliss didn't last long at all. Gradually but steadily, Ben's true behavior began to emerge and take on increasingly possessive and manipulative characteristics. The compliments that had flowed so freely transformed into insults. The affection that had felt so genuine became humiliation and degradation. Just 1 month after the start of their relationship, Ben first allowed himself to treat Jayden with genuine cruelty and meanness. For Jayden, who found herself in a romantic relationship for the very first time in her life, especially with someone so much older and more experienced, the change was deeply confusing, painful, and disorienting. She began to desperately look for reasons for Ben's changing behavior in herself, in her possible shortcomings and failures. This is classic victim mentality. And Ben, being an experienced manipulator, masterfully exploited it to his advantage. He created and arranged real emotional roller coasters for her. At one moment, he could tell her how charming and beautiful she was, how lucky he felt to be with her. The next moment, he would accuse her of terrible things, call her worthless, Tell her she was lucky that someone like him would even look at her ugly face. Jealousy became his favorite and most effective weapon of control. Ben would fabricate incredibly elaborate scenarios designed specifically to accuse Jayden of betrayal, cheating, and deception. He would twist innocent interactions with male classmates into ironclad evidence of her supposed infidelity. And with each accusation, each interrogation, each forced confession, Jayden's self-esteem and sense of self-worth crumbled a little bit more. It was during this increasingly dark period that Jayden discovered her boyfriend was periodically using illegal substances and drugs. His dramatic emotional instability and violent mood swings were partly explained by this dangerous fact. But anyone watching carefully could see that the substance abuse wasn't the core problem here. The real fundamental problem was Ben himself, who he was as a person at his core. All the warning signs clearly indicated that verbal and emotional abuse would not be the end of Jayden's suffering. Once she was firmly attached to this toxic relationship through trauma bonding, once Ben had successfully isolated her from her support system and systematically broken down all her psychological defenses, his behavior escalated to something truly aggressive, dangerous, and cruel. One day, when they were walking together with Jayden's small group of remaining friends, Ben began to openly and harshly express his dissatisfaction with them. He criticized how they dressed, how they talked, what they laughed about, what they found funny. This was straight out of the textbook manipulator's playbook. Isolate the victim completely from their support system. Cut them off from friends and family who might recognize the abuse and intervene to save them. But then something remarkable happened that showed Jayden's core strength. Despite everything she'd been through, she found a spark of her old self. She actually dared to stand up to her boyfriend. She defended her right to communicate with her friends, asserting clearly that these relationships were important to her, and she absolutely wouldn't give them up for anyone. Ben's response was entirely predictable and absolutely terrifying. He flew into a furious rage. He resorted to every single manipulative technique in his arsenal to force Jayden to quarrel with her friends. He spread vicious lies about them. He created unnecessary drama. He forced Jayden into impossible positions where she was backed into corners and had to choose between him and them. Jayden tried desperately and valiantly to maintain those precious friendships. But gradually, painfully, one by one, her friends began to turn away and distance themselves. Not because they didn't genuinely care about Jayden or love her, but because Ben's relentlessly toxic behavior was simply too much to bear. Despite absolutely everything, despite the isolation, despite the cruelty, despite the violence, Jayden's feelings for Ben somehow didn't fade away. And then Ben crossed a line that should have ended everything immediately and permanently. He hit Jayden directly in the face with his fist. Inexcusable, unforgivable. And although it was obvious to any rational observer that such behavior could never ever be justified under any circumstances, Ben still somehow managed to convince Jayden that she was actually to blame for making him do it, that she had provoked him beyond what any man could tolerate. Jayden's family watched all of this unfold with growing horror and helplessness. They could see their beloved daughter and sister trapped in an obviously toxic and dangerous relationship with a very dangerous person. Her mother tried desperately to get through to her to make her see reason, but Jayden found herself caught in a constant internal battle between her family who loved her and the person she mistakenly believed she loved. Then, in early December 2013, everything changed in a way nobody expected. Jayden discovered she was pregnant with Ben's child. At just 17 years old, still a child herself in so many ways, facing an uncertain future with an abusive boyfriend, Jayden found herself confronting one of life's biggest and most consequential decisions far too young. The pregnancy news sent Ben into an immediate panic. Despite all his endless talk about their future together, he was absolutely not ready to be a father. More importantly, he simply didn't want to be one. He began pressuring Jayden relentlessly, aggressively, sometimes violently, to have an abortion and terminate the pregnancy immediately. But something profound shifted deep inside Jayden when she learned about the pregnancy. Perhaps it was maternal instinct suddenly kicking in with surprising force. Perhaps it was the realization that this child could finally be the real family she'd always desperately craved. Whatever the reason, Jayden made a firm, unshakable decision that would seal her fate. She would keep her baby no matter what Ben wanted. This decision absolutely infuriated Ben beyond anything Jayden had seen before. He became even more violent, controlling, and dangerous than before. The beatings intensified in frequency and severity. The verbal abuse reached new heights of cruelty and degradation that were almost unimaginable. In early December, when Jayden was approximately 5 weeks pregnant with their child, Ben took Jayden to a remote countryside location, far from any prying eyes or potential witnesses. What he told her to convince her to go there with him, we can only speculate. What happened next is almost too terrible, too evil to comprehend. Ben Blakeley strangled Jayden Parkinson to death with his bare hands. But here's where this already horrific case becomes even more disturbing and nightmarish. Forensic experts who later carefully examined Jayden's body made a chilling determination. Ben didn't simply kill her quickly in a moment of rage or passion. He deliberately strangled her at least 3 separate times, each time bringing her right to the brink of death, watching her lose consciousness, then reviving her and bringing her back only to strangle her again and repeat the horrific process. Each time he brought her back to consciousness, she would have experienced those moments of pure terror completely anew. The awful realization that she was dying, the ultimate betrayal of someone she loved actually taking her life, and the life of their unborn child. Ben did this deliberately for his own perverted pleasure and entertainment. He genuinely enjoyed watching her suffer. He relished the absolute power and control he had over her life and death. After murdering Jayden, Ben called his younger brother Jake and forced him at threat of violence to help dispose of Jayden's body. Jake was absolutely terrified of his older brother, and for very good reason. Under Ben's threatening direction, Jake helped move Jayden's lifeless body into a large suitcase. But Ben wasn't satisfied with simply dumping her body somewhere remote like most killers do. He had a specific calculated plan. Ben forced Jake to accompany him to 2 different churchyards over the following nights. At each location, Ben ordered his terrified brother to dig into existing graves to test whether they could. Thanks for watching Crime Stories with Annie. From hidden motives to shocking truths, we uncover the darkest stories that grip the heart. If you're drawn to real investigations, twisted cases, and justice served, subscribe, leave a comment, and join us as we explore the crimes that demand to be told.